Hey, welcome back to Mocktails with Marina. I'm your host, Marina, and today's guest is someone I know you're going to love. Abbie Romanul is the founder of Raising the Bar, a monthly zero-proof cocktail kit subscription that's redefining what it means to celebrate, without alcohol, but never without flavor, intention, or connection. Her story starts like many of ours, a moment of truth, a shift in habit, and an unmet need that turned into a bold business idea. When Abbie decided to stop drinking, she realized how few options there were for people who still wanted the ritual of a cocktail without the alcohol. So she built it herself. And in doing so, she's helping thousands of others reclaim happy hour as a space of inclusion and joy. So let's raise a glass to that and dive right in. Thank you so much for being here today, Abbie.
It's a joy. Thank you so much for having me, Marina.
Yes, I am very excited because for those of you who haven't looked up Raising the Bar before, do yourself a favor, take a look at the description of this episode. You're going to find all the links of everything that we're going to talk through today. So keep that in mind as we go through these questions and we get a little bit of information from Abbie. So I would love to start by having you take us back to the moment that you decided to stop drinking. Like, what was your life like in that moment?
Well, that is a complicated question, as I feel like it is for so many of us who ultimately reached that decision, because there were multiple points where I thought, this is it, I need to stop drinking. And there were many false starts over the years. But when that decision finally stuck, it was the right before the holidays in 2018. And I had two young kids at home. I was working a corporate job. I was high functioning on the outside, but on the inside, drinking was the kind of glue that felt like it was holding everything together. The stress of work and parenting and life in general. And I really thought that was kind of the crutch to get through things. But what really felt different about that time was that it wasn't one of those like rock bottom moments where you wake up and you're like, oh my God, what did I do last night? It was after a work trip. I was on business in New York and had gone out for a few drinks the night before an agency meeting. And I was sitting through that meeting the next day, not having blacked out, which was a frequent thing, but just feeling that, that awful hangover feeling and the shame and the guilt and the regret of not showing up as your best self and feeling like, how did I do this again? And I don't know what it was about that particular moment, but when I flew back to Boston and was in an Uber ride on the way back home to see my family, I was chatting with this Uber driver and we were just talking about our families. And he said something like, well, you sound like a really great mom. And I burst into tears. I burst into tears because I felt like such a fraud. Like I didn't feel
Oh.
like a great mom. I didn't feel like a great employer, a great partner, or a great friend. And there was just something about that particular trip where I was like, I just don't want to feel like this ever again. And I don't want to have that negotiation where it's like, okay, let's take a break. Like, I just don't want to do this again, full stop. And that was it. And I remember kind of carrying that thought with me and in the morning telling my husband and just sobbing. It felt like I was going through a breakup, like this thing that had been with me since, my early teenage years, shepherding me through so many challenging times. And so even though I was devastated, it still felt like the right thing. And that's sometimes what breakups are. Something can be really good for you for a while and then it's not. But that was the beginning. And immediately it was like relief once I realized that it felt different, that this was a turning point.
Wow, what strikes me about your story is the fact that you frame it like a breakup. I think that's so helpful for so many people because it seems logical that it should feel like, oh, well, I've suddenly decided that this thing is poison to my life, so I don't want it. Therefore, it should be great, right? But it's not.
Right.
There's
It's
a whole
not that
process.
easy. That's
Yeah, and
right.
there's so much to that. So what surprised you most about that experience, like that first week or month of going alcohol free?
I think because I knew in my body like this was it, there was this optimism and this excitement, rather than the times that I had come to maybe saying, I'm going to take a break, or like I'll stop for an indefinite amount of period until it feels right. Like there was this sense of freedom for the first time, like rather than negotiating with myself a million different ways, as I'm sure many of us can relate to, that kind of back and forth. You've got, the two sides of your mind that are like, yes, I can actually keep this. Like maybe if we did it this way, like we could keep it. But having the clarity that this was different allowed me to kind of move forward, even holding that sadness and that kind of bittersweet feeling that it was over, knowing that there were good things ahead and not knowing what that looked like, but believing that there was something really good coming.
Yes, that belief that something is just around the corner, I think is so important because, like you said, talking about like negotiating with yourself, I feel like there have been so many times that I have wasted, like when I think back to my sobriety journey, I'm like, oh my gosh, like how many hours? Like, is there a way to count how many hours I spent like just negotiating when my next fix of some kind was going to come
Yes.
in? Such a time
Yes.
waster.
It's such a time waster. And I think that's one of the things that really finally dawned on me, that even with the active times where I was drinking and then the active after effects, the hangover, the guilt, shame, and regret, the negotiation piece, which didn't have to do with drinking actively, just like planning for it or thinking about it, that took up even more time than the drinking and the after effects itself. And when I really finally started to realize how much of my time and my energy and my headspace was being robbed, not just by the act, but the planning and the thinking about it, that really started to click.
That's so interesting, especially because a lot of times I can't remember the name of the principle right now, but there's a principle out there that's like if you think something is going to take a certain amount of time, let's say it's going to take 30
Mm,
days in your head, but then, you're like, okay, so then I'm going to make it take 30 days. Whereas it could have
right.
actually just taken a week, but
Right.
all of this stuff got built up in your head. So all of that is to say, at one point, you were like, okay, I'm taking my time back. And instead, I'm sure you had to spend a lot of that time looking for options, right? Like looking for non-alc options. So when did the idea of raising the bar like first hit you? Like what made you act on it?
Yeah, so it's actually, I think about this all the time, just how interesting the timing was. So to have made that decision early in December, I was conscious like the holidays can be really stressful. There are a lot of events going on, a lot of socialization, family time, all of those types of things. And I was like, this is really interesting that I settled at this decision the month where drinking is so much part of our culture. So my husband and I were on our way. We live in the Boston area, and we were driving to Connecticut for a New Year's Eve party to visit college friends. And these were like our drinking buddies. And so we had 2 hours in the car, and I just remember saying to my husband, like, I wish there was, a way that I could still enjoy the kind of festivity and the excitement and the creativity and the sophisticated taste, because I enjoyed the flavor of cocktails, but in a zero proof way. And just he was driving, I was in the passenger seat. I did a quick Google search, and there was nothing quite like it. There were surely like the early adopters of the RTD space and some of the non-alc spirits, but there was no curated experience that allowed you to really kind of replicate what it's like to make a good cocktail. And so it was within a few weeks of making that decision, both the concept for raising the bar came to me as well as the name. Like that, it just from the beginning, like we're raising the bar on life. Let's raise the bar on what it means to make a good cocktail. Let's keep all of the celebratory, creative, social elements of it. We're just swapping out what's in the glass a little bit.
Ooh, so smart there. Like you saw that gap in the market and felt it as the consumer. And again, got to take all that extra free time you have now in your head to do something about it and solve these problems for other people, which is cool, especially because the whole point of beverages, like these are, if we had to come up with one word to put this whole category of non-alc and functional and all these crazy things together, I always refer to it as like social beverages, right? So it's like
Mm,
social requires experience. So it's funny that when our industry first started really growing, yes, thankfully there are these RTDs coming out and, a few like recipes here and there,
yeah.
but it's wild that the experiential part took a minute to catch up. Like we were like, okay, well, we figured out what to put in our glasses, but we didn't figure out what to put in the schedule as
That's
humans.
right. That's
So
right. Yeah.
what does celebration mean to you now compared to before your zero proof journey?
Yeah, I mean, so I still very much feel like when I'm socializing, I want that glass in hand. It's part of the ritual, it's part of the opportunity to toast and connect. It also feels like a little bit of a prop, right? Like I remember being at work dinners, and if you're not holding that glass of wine or a beer or a cocktail, you get asked, why aren't you drinking? And in a way, having that glass of something special gives you that almost camouflage that you're not so obviously separate. And today, I obviously love talking about it. I feel so confident in my choice. People are curious about it. And they open up when they learn more about what I do or what I'm drinking or not drinking. But in the beginning, part of it was this desire to not feel seen as somebody who was other.
Hmm. I feel that. I remember when, now I'm not like a fan of liquid death per se, because I'm like not into Satanism, but like I just remember when I first got sober, that was like one of the only options, freaking death water.
Yes.
It gave somewhat of an ability to blend in, right? As long as you put your hands over the words water and you just people just see the little skull. It worked.
Totally, totally. And like I think, yeah, even if that's not a brand that resonates, I think just being in the category and offering that replacement, offering something that is feels, you know, not like just your standard seltzer or soda, which those are great options, right? But we oftentimes want something more special, and we deserve that. That's part of the act of socializing or the ritual of unwinding. So I think you're right. Like just having that can that looks not obvious is goes a long way.
Yeah. And then getting to like, now we're at the point in 2025 where we can finally start matching our outfits with our drinks. We have a little bit more options, but all of that being said, I'm so curious again, back to, day one of raising the bar. What was your very first prototype kit like?
Yeah, well, as you noted, when you quit drinking, you suddenly find yourself with a lot more time on your hands than you might realize. So, we had this idea, but I was again where I was working a corporate job. I was busy, parenting my kids, and there was no part of me after that idea came to mind where I was like, yeah, so we have this idea, so let's do it. So I spent my time early on painting rooms and organizing and like just trying to keep my hands busy. And the idea of raising the bar would come up every couple weeks. My husband Devin and I would talk about it, but again, it was never like, okay, so how are we going to do this? So it was finally a couple years in to my decision not to drink, and it was another one of those conversations where the idea of raising the bar came up, and Devin was like, so I really believe in this idea. I think this is an incredible idea. Like, are we going to do it or not? Like, if we're going to do it, let's do it. If we're not, we don't need to keep talking about it. And I was like, oh, like this is something we could actually do. It just never occurred to me that we could take that step. I don't have a business background. I started my career in museums and art history, and then I did transition into CPG marketing. So I did have some of the experience there, but I had no idea how to even go about beginning that journey. So we finally did kick off February 2020. I was pregnant with my third child, and we used $2,000 of our personal money and worked with a graphic designer to just start designing a logo and some kind of brand guidelines. I felt like I don't know where to begin with the concept without kind of this brand identity. So we worked on that and had, experimented at home with plenty of products and recipes and things like that. But I really didn't understand what the functions would be in terms of putting together a box and sourcing products and fulfillment and all of that. And then a month later, as we all know, March 2020 hit, and the pandemic began, and we found ourselves, both of us working from home, homeschooling our two kids, preparing for this baby that was due May 2020. And all of that work that we started with the graphic designer, we were just like, okay, this is on the back burner. We have other things we need to be focusing on right now. But as we kind of settled into pandemic life, and with our third child born in May, we were hunkered down at home. And that did give us a lot more opportunity to kind of experiment, test recipe ideas, and learn more about what brands were out there. And as we made our way through that summer, I just kept thinking, I'm going back to work in September after this maternity leave. I really need to figure out, like, if we're going to do this, I feel like it has to be kicked off before I go back to work, or else I don't know when I will ever be able to find the time to do it. So we ended up launching our site the night before I went back to work in September, and we had put together a little prototype. We had done a few tests and had come up with some recipes, and we figured we'll just launch the site. We had no specific goals, and we figured we would see how many pre-orders we got, and then we would fulfill that number of boxes and just play it by ear and go from there. So that was how we initially started.
Ah, this is so cool. And it just goes to show like we didn't know the world was going to shut down. Like, but with, hindsight looking at how your story played out, it's just so beautiful. And it just goes to show when you listen to that little voice in your head that just will not let go, and it just keeps
Yes,
telling an idea, like, you will be rewarded in the sense that, you're putting your time and energy into this. You're putting those details. So it's just a matter of time before it works, right? And
absolutely.
I also love that you mentioned that, you started while you were pregnant, while you were just you and your husband starting out with 2K. I feel like this is the magic moment for some of our audience out there, because I feel like a lot of people think like, okay, well, to open a bar with all of that renovation and everything from
Yes,
scratch is 250,000 at least. When everything is said and done, including inventory, staff, all of that.
of
So how do
course.
I even start? And a lot of these things, a lot of these ideas and concepts, we can start at home with as little as $2,000. I know that does feel like a lot for a lot of people too. I'm not belittling it, but what I'm
For
saying is
sure.
it's not $250,000.
That's right. And what I finally had realized, and this is something that I've taken with me, beyond raising the bar into other aspects of my life, but the classic adage, the perfect should not be the enemy of the good. And having a minimum viable product is enough to start. Like, you don't have to have a fully fleshed out strategy or business plan or any of that. I understand for many people that does make sense, and the businesses they're building, that is something that they need to do. But for this, we just had to get started, and once we did, that's where the momentum came from.
Ah, so cool. Yes, an idea that usually it starts, in one way and then it evolves. So I'm curious to, if you can give us a little walkthrough for our audience, what's it like to receive a box today compared to that first one? Like, what's the experience from the moment it arrives at my door?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I love listening to other business owner stories and hearing how their brand or their product evolved. And what I think is so funny is our customer experience in terms of what they receive today and how they receive it is not that different from when we started. So the first box that we shipped out, we did pack the boxes at our dining room table for the first year. And honestly, that was such a special time, just like putting on music. We would put the kids to bed, and that was super fun, just getting all of that together, and the excitement of packaging these little, felt like these gifts that we were sending out into the world. And what we launched with was a box that contained all of the ingredients to make 4 servings of one drink. So the only major thing that has changed in terms of how we're sharing the product is, over time, we listen to the customers, and people are really interested in different difficulty levels and trying different products in different ways. So we migrated from this idea of one recipe that makes 4 servings to a box that has 2 different recipes. So you can explore some of these ingredients in a couple different formats, as well as a ready to drink. So they're getting, different difficulty types. That ready to drink, you can pour over ice or pop in the fridge and crack it, enjoy, super simple. And then some of the recipes are, here's a non-alc spirit with a mixer and some bitters, stir it. And then maybe the other recipe is a little bit more complicated, where you're, brewing and chilling a tea, and there might be a few other steps. But essentially, you get this box monthly if you are a monthly subscriber. And inside, there's a brochure that contains the recipes, showing you how to use them, teaching you some different mixology skills. And something that has also been consistent since the beginning is we've tried to do loose themes. So just having some kind of fun way to bring together what the products are and the recipes are in a loose thematic way. So for instance, our box in May, we collaborated with Mocktail mom, Deb Podlagar, and it was called Yo Mama. And she collaborated with us, and the two drinks were modeled after her daughter's favorite flavors. So whether we're collaborating with a partner or doing something like our August box is called Tiki Torched, and it's all tiki inspired rum alt drinks. We just like to have that little bit of fun to frame the experience in.
See, that's exactly it. The gap in the market you originally saw, you may not have been able to see all these details of that 2025 holds, but it came from what sounds like you listening to your people, which, by the way, everybody listening, that is the most important. If you're not doing market research and listening to your people, you probably shouldn't be in business because we're here to serve people. So I would love to hear what's one customer review or message that kind of stands out in your memory that really stayed with you.
Oh God, I mean, this one might make me cry, but
Aw.
this was so one of the assumptions I made when we started the business. And like you said, a lot of us come to these businesses solving these personal challenges in our life, right? I made the assumption that, okay, other people who are interested in this are going to be non-drinkers who want to make zero proof cocktails. And to your point, in listening to the people, what I know now is maybe about half of our customers are non-drinkers, but the other half are people who are big cocktail fans and are looking for alternatives to switch it up when they don't want to consume alcohol. They like to have things on hand to offer their guests. They're either going through a pregnancy or a medical reason where they're abstaining from drinking for a specific period, a number of different reasons. But the customer feedback that I always think about is a couple, an older couple. The husband was going through treatment for liver cancer, and they had fondly enjoyed a daily ritual of a 5 p.m. happy hour their entire married lives together. And now that he was going through this experience, alcohol was off the table, but they wanted to retain that ritual and that connection. And that's how they came to us. And to hear that we could solve for that connection and that tradition that they had created together during a really challenging time is something that will always stick with me.
That is so precious. And I love that. Again, it's about not having to switch up your whole life or your lifestyle or all the people in your life. It's just what's in your cup.
Yes, and I think so many of us come to the choice not to drink, or are faced with having to choose not to drink because of circumstances, and it feels like a deprivation. It feels like a missing out on. It feels like a punishment. And what we want to offer in these experiences and these drinks is you are not being punished. You are not deprived. You are enjoying something delicious, well crafted, thoughtful, intentional. And that's it. It just happens not to have alcohol. And I think reclaiming some of that missing out on piece has been really empowering for me personally. And I think for our customers as well.
I hear that. And I'm curious now. Of all of the kits you've ever sent out, what was your like, do you have a favorite, whether it was a recipe or just like a kit theme?
Yes. So we've had a number of boxes over the years, and we've never repeated a box that has been in the past. We've done maybe
Dang.
reworks of them, or like over the holidays, we'll always do like a holiday shrub box, but it'll include different flavors and different ingredients. But we had a box last year in August called Pithy, and it featured Pellini's Lemon Zero Limoncello, this really beautiful, elegant bottle of limoncello, along with several other products, creating just these really vibrant summer spritzes. And between the drinks themselves, which were so good and so juicy and so summery, and just how all the products look together, it was just one of those great unboxing experiences where everything looks so beautiful together. And that's I think also where some of my background in art history and curatorial work comes in. That is, in the past now, but I still love the look and feel of something cohesive that feels really intentional. And when I think of one of the most beautiful boxes that also resulted in some of my favorite drinks, Pithy is it.
Oh my goodness. Let me just say right now, like, I'm a mixologist in this industry, right? Like I have to play with a lot of these things. But yet the concept of being delivered a beautiful box by someone who literally studied art, like that alone, I mean, I'm sold because
I love it.
that's beyond a hug in a box. Like you said, you feel like you're putting all of these special gifts together that feel so personal, but it's to all these people everywhere. I'm actually curious what everywhere means. Are you like, tell us about the like breadth of people that you help all over in all the different locations.
Yes. So right now we are only in the US. For a while we were in Canada, and just the cost and logistics made that cost prohibitive for the time being. But in terms of where our customers are, we have customers in almost every state in the country. We have customers in Hawaii, Alaska, and as a online first business, we really are all over the country. And I love being able to be accessible in that way to so many. I think one of the big pain points that a lot of people find us through is if they're new to this space, it can be very overwhelming. It is so exciting that we have so many options today, but in a way, today is more overwhelming than when I quit drinking 6 years ago, because you don't even know where to begin. There are too many choices. And so we take that discovery piece and that curation piece and take that challenge out of the equation to introduce people to those brands and products. So I really think that that is something that is especially great if you're not in a metro area and you don't know where to begin, or you don't want to buy a case of something online not knowing that you're going to like it. So we get to do that trial on a smaller scale and help people really discover what their favorite new things are.
That's so true. I do not appreciate going to places that only sell them in bulk. And I'm like, man, but I want to try it. Where can I do that? So this is the perfect
Exactly.
opportunity.
Yes.
So, what's your process for selecting? I mean, of course, you have this creative element of like themes and
Mhm.
potentially collaborating with people. But like, do you guys have like a set list of standards where you're like, we refuse to work with these ingredients? Or, like what's the selection process look like when you're putting these together?
Yeah, that is such a great question. And I think we really try to balance, we always have to factor in what the end product is and the experience for the customer, while also on the back end being sustainable from a growing business perspective and making sure that we're balancing all those pieces. So we've kind of settled on working with a blend of more established brands that have been around for a while and maybe have bigger marketing budgets, with wanting to also really highlight and spotlight newer and emerging brands, indie brands, that sort of thing. So you will see in our boxes a variety of products, from things you've never heard of that are brand new, just launched, to brands like Fever Tree, where you've seen them all over the place, but you're now using them in the context of a product that you haven't necessarily tried before. So we have in our dining room just kind of a huge warehouse of all of the brands that we like to try. We get people sending samples all the time to test, and that's a really great way for us to discover new things. We'll do proactive outreach to brands we want to work with, but it is very much a process of trial and error. If we want to really work with a particular brand and there's a product they want to highlight, we'll try to build a set of drinks around that. If there is a theme we have in mind, sometimes we'll start with the theme and then work backwards from there. What brands or products, non-alc spirits, make sense in this context, and then go from there. So it is not a formula. It really is more of an art than a science. And that's part of the piece that I enjoy the most. And as my role has grown, as the business has evolved, that's the piece that I still hold most closely and enjoy the most, because it really does feel like that fun, creative element that was what I was interested in the first place.
Yes, it is such a blank canvas with so many different colors out there when it comes to mixology, especially in the NA space. And, you know, I know people on the outside, they might look in and think, okay, making drinks, like, cool. That's a creative process, but they may not understand some of the challenges that come with that. So what are, I'm sure there have been some boxes that you put together within an instant. You were like, "Oh my gosh, this was a match made in heaven." But then there were probably some other boxes that you were like, "Man, I gotta be done with this in like 10 minutes. Like I gotta put this idea together." What have been some challenging boxes, like boxing experiences that you've had?
Yeah, I mean, we've done so many now. I think there are a few things, right? There's the actual flavors themselves, and taste is subjective. So I think my palate tends to skew more towards bitter, kind of dry botanical things. And so there have been boxes that have been my personal favorite. One of those being Afterglow, which was our September 2024 box. And I remember putting those recipes together, feeling so excited. And I think that was probably the most negative feedback we've ever gotten on a box. And that's just a reminder to me that, again, taste is so subjective. And so within our recipes, how can we provide a couple different options where it might cater to different palates? So you're appealing to a broader group of people by offering two different ways to try something. But then there's also things like, I got into this business because I like drinks, not because I like to work with glass and cardboard and packing materials. So that's been a huge learning curve, is like, oh, there are some bottles that are just way more fragile. And oh, wow, that's going to result in a much greater percentage of breakage and shipment. And how do we start to learn and account for those things so that we really are making the best chance possible of delivering that experience? Because if you're looking forward to your monthly mocktail box and you go outside on your front porch and you pick up a leaking box of product, that sucks, right? Like nobody wants that. But that's one of the challenges of just learning as we go, and parts of the business that just were really never on my mind. My mind was good drinks, beautiful experience. And then there's the logistics of the pricing and the packaging and, all of those pieces. So I can't think of a specific box where it was just like, this is a complete nightmare disaster, but it is interesting to get that constant feedback loop from customers and be reminded that I am one person with one flavor profile, and we have to constantly be thinking about, the broader audience.
I hear that. And I know plenty others out there understand what it's like to be so excited about an offer and then to just like have it a little bit underperform or perform differently. I know when we first started, we knew that we were going to be helping non-alc entrepreneurs. And what our motivating force was specifically helping established places because that was um the problem that we saw these mom and pop shops that were amazing, that really needed their operations put together in a way that was a little bit more succinct. And then it turns out though that marketing to start out a brand new business is very hard. So we had to
Yeah.
go a totally other approach. It took us a full year specifically for that program to we launched it, we were super excited about it, and then we realized, okay, we need to communicate this differently in order for it to land for the right people. And then once we did, now it's our biggest grossing offer. But it just goes to show, like, if like you said, like not only is taste subjective in so many different meanings, but again, that market research, your audience
Yes.
is going to give you gold. They're going to quite literally tell you, please do this and I'll give you more money and you will be able to
Right.
support me more. And I love that you're open to hearing that. So I would love to hear from you. Like, do you have mechanisms within the experience for people that it's super easy, that like begs for that feedback? Or do people typically feel just so inspired that they just go ahead and send you an email?
Yeah, we definitely get those people who are reaching out just, proactively. But within each monthly box, we do a survey for that box. So after you get the June box, a few weeks after that lands, you'll get a survey and it will ask about the recipes, about the products, about, were you interested in getting more from a particular brand that you discovered? Would you be likely to purchase again? From the flavor profiles that were in the box, which ones were most appealing? So we are getting that constant feedback loop, which is so helpful. And I have to admit, it's something that we need to do more with because, like you said, this is just a gold mine of information. I remember a year or so in doing a couple, Zoom focus groups with some of our longer term subscribers, and that was so incredible to realize how generous people are with their time. We gave them a couple complimentary boxes as a thank you, but people want to help you create the thing that they're enjoying and make it even better. And that is something I'm constantly amazed by, the generosity of people's feedback and how it can really help improve things. But that's been such a North Star to hear directly from those folks and to have that feedback inform how we make decisions in the future.
Yay. Yes. So everybody out there, if you're the type of person who loves to be heard, you're just like, I want someone to hear my opinions today.
Yeah, we want to listen. People want to
Not,
listen.
yeah. And also what I'm getting, I feel like if someone is subscribed for like 2 years, I feel like by that point they deserve some sort of like non-alc sommelier
Yes,
certificate because I mean, that's a lot of, I mean, if we're going through two different drinks, we're doing different experiences every month, 20, I mean, that is more than a standard menu at a fully
totally.
like NA bar. So that is super impressive. And it's just so cool. Again, this experiential box just keeps giving more and more. It's one of those things where if someone wanted to work for our company and I wasn't sure whether or not they knew enough about NA, if they were like, oh, well, actually, I don't know if you know this, but
Mm,
I've been subscribed to Raising the Bar for like 2 years. Like I've tried all these products, I've done all these things. I would be like, oh, tell me more about that. Tell me these things
yeah,
because you're offering like a crash course without people even knowing it. And I think that's so cool. And I know that, like you mentioned, right, with the packaging and all these other things, there's other parts of the business that other people can't necessarily see or understand from the outside.
totally.
But all of that being said, I'd love to hear, what what's going to be like based on all of this context here that we've built, what is coming next? So not just like, okay, we have some fun flavors coming out, but like for you personally, like where do you feel that you want to grow more in this industry?
Yeah, that is such a good question. I feel like, this September will be 5 years of raising the bar. And that feels both like wild, like how could it have been that long? And also like, okay, yeah, we've gone through a lot over the past 5 years to get here, and that makes sense. But I think we're kind of at this really interesting turning point where we have an established product, we have demand. We've demonstrated that this is something that people want and has a place in the market. And now it's about scaling. So I think a lot of the systems that got us here, and sometimes systems is not even the right word. It's like the scrappiness and the hustle and the willingness to like, check off a million different things from a million different lists is now collating into, okay, we have to streamline and have more of a process. So like you asked, how do we approach those boxes? And there's the part of me, the creative part of me that's like, well, it shouldn't be templated. Like it should be more creative and experimental. But on the other hand, as we scale and deliver more boxes and have more customers, there are some things that do have to necessarily become formatted in some way. And so that's kind of the turning point that I'm at as a founder and a CEO, is how do I retain all the pieces that feel really important and vital to who we are and what we do and the product that we offer, while simplifying it in a way that allows us to offer it to more people.
Mm. Beautiful. Always growing, always evolving. And just like you can grow right alongside raising the bar. So I am so sad. We're already so close to the end of our hour. So is there any last piece of wisdoms or nuggets of advice or, just fun things that you would like to share with us today, Abbie?
Yeah, I think just I never imagined that I would start a brand and grow it and turn that into the work that feels so fulfilling to me today. I didn't even think of that as an option. And I think people in this space, especially, I've really noticed this, are so generous of their time and their experience. Many of us come to these businesses again through that personal challenge and not just an interest in, but this personal experience with using these products as a support to our own decisions. And I encourage anybody who's thinking about making that kind of move or dipping their toe in. Um, there are so many people who are out there willing to talk to you and help you and share their experiences and help you learn from their mistakes. And I know that a big part of me really making my way was taking advantage of that offer from others to help. So I would say, if you have an idea, like you don't have to sit with it for years like I did before pulling the trigger. If there's something that's speaking to you and calling to you, this is just a space with so much opportunity and so many incredible people in it to shepherd you along the way.
It's so true. Every single thing you said is so true. Thank you so much for joining us today and for the work you're doing to make the celebration space so much more beautiful, intentional, and inclusive.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed being here and love learning from you and the other incredible people you interview. So thank you so much.
Ah, stop it. Thanks. If you want to learn more about Abbie or raising the bar, go ahead and take a look at the description again. But otherwise, the website is www.weareraisingthebar.com. You can also follow along on Instagram at We Are Raising the Bar. You can take a look at the description again for a little bit more information. But if you have any questions, comments, curiosities, please do not hesitate to send an email, hello@marinamars.com. And even if that question isn't for me or you're not sure who it's for, we will forward it to whoever it needs to get to. So whether you're sober curious, or just sipping slower these days, there's absolutely a seat for you at this table. So until next time, cheers to connection, to creativity, and to raising the bar on what's possible in this space. Bula, and I'll catch you in the next episode. So until then, if you need anything, just let me know.